welcome to the third annual EQ for Africa conference. Really delighted to have you with us today as we kick off this great occasion. My name is Mucha Mlingo and I am one of the co-hosts for this annual event. And again, I'm delighted to have you with us this morning as we start this 3-day journey of transformation. We often don't realize it, but our emotions drive our behavior. And so when we don't pay attention to them, it means that you are driving blindfold, something you wouldn't do in real life. So why would you do it as far as your emotions are concerned? I started the EQ for Africa conference here in Kenya in 2019. I saw the need. We live in turbulent times. There is so much complexity. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, stress had been rising as the emotional challenge grew steadily worse across the world. Back then, pre-COVID, emotional intelligence was considered a fluffy, nice to have, but definitely non-essential skill. I had come to the realization that it was more, and inspired by the 6 Seconds Global EQ Summit held in Dubai in 2017 and the African Emotional Intelligence Conference hosted by Pause Factory in Nigeria in 2018, both of which I attended, I had the desire to plant a seed here in East Africa. I knew that emotional intelligence is the very attribute that will help us to navigate through the fourth industrial revolution and the changes that were afoot as a result of the advance in technology. Because emotional intelligence empowers us to utilize our emotions as a strategic resource. Fast forward to 2021, the third edition of this EQ for Africa conference. And it is clear EQ is even more important as we battle with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our theme this year is a whole new world. The conference seeks to provide you with the tools to leverage the power of emotional intelligence so that you can renew purpose, strengthen resilience, and spark vitality. We can all agree as we look ahead to life after COVID-19 that it is a very different world. The future is unclear. Most of us, from the oldest to the youngest members of our society, are struggling to manage our emotions, to maintain balance and well-being, and to cope with the impact of this pandemic. Emotional intelligence, as I said, is no longer a nice-to-have skill. It is an essential skill that will help us to navigate through the challenges, the unpredictability, and the potential loss that comes with a crisis. Over the next 3 days, you will gain insight and tools to leverage this powerful skill of emotional intelligence to achieve your big, hairy, audacious goals. We will explore how emotional intelligence will help you to redefine and recommit to your purpose and find the motivation from within to push forwards. We will explore how emotional intelligence will help you to successfully surf the wave of change for career success, for success at life, even amidst the storm. And we will explore how emotional intelligence will help you to develop the emotional and mental well-being to flourish even in these challenging circumstances. I'm excited to officially welcome you to the EQ for Africa conference, hosted this year by the 6 Seconds partners across the African globe. We have come together, and this truly is a Pan-African event, as the conference is co-hosted by Pause Factory based in Nigeria, by Resilient People based in South Africa, by EQ in Action based in South Africa, by the Wangari Maathai Foundation based here in Kenya, and by PTS Africa, the organization that I lead. It really is a whole new world. And we know that emotional intelligence is just what you need to be able to thrive in this whole new world. Allow me to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, Joshua Friedman, who is going to kick off the conference as we begin to dive into our theme for today, which is around purpose. Before I bring Josh on, before Josh comes on to present his keynote, just to remind you that throughout the course of the day, we have 3 categories or 3 sessions that we will be having. So the first will be the keynote, which will be by Joshua Friedman, and I'm going to introduce him shortly. Thereafter, we will go into our breakout sessions, and our breakout sessions will be focusing on change and focusing on purpose, and how we can reconnect and recommit to our purpose. After the breakouts, we will come back for a panel discussion that will continue to explore purpose in organizations and how we can really utilize the power of purpose. Our panel discussion is entitled It Starts With Why. And so that is what we are going to be doing over the course of today. Please note a couple of things, so some quick housekeeping. Please note that we will, in the breakout session, be using a number of handouts, all of which were sent to you on email. So please do check your email and make sure that you have access to the different handouts that we sent for the breakout session today. In addition, please have your 6 seconds EQ report. We sent you an EQ assessment, and the idea was that you complete the assessment prior to today. Make sure you have your report. We'll be utilizing that in the panel discussion at the end of the day. So on that note, I would like to introduce to you our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Joshua Friedman. Joshua Friedman is the CEO and co-founder of 6 Seconds. He is one of the world's top experts on developing emotional intelligence to improve performance. One of a handful of people in the world with over 20 years of full-time experience implementing emotional intelligence, working with clients across the globe. Joshua leads the world's largest emotional intelligence network, 6 Seconds, as I mentioned, with practitioners and researchers and offices and representatives in 25 countries. And Josh has worked all over the globe. He is a master trainer. He is the author of the international bestsellers, At the Heart of Leadership and the Vital Organization, as well as Inside Change, Transforming Your Organization with Emotional Intelligence. He's also written Wholehearted Parenting and dozens of case studies and articles, including the business case for emotional intelligence and the workplace vitality report. Josh is a co-author of 6 validated psychometric assessments, including the EQ Leadership Report and the Organizational Vital Signs Climate Measure, as well as several other books and training programs, including the Management Essentials and the Pioneering Approach to Social and Emotional Learning, Self-Science. Josh is a Master Certified Coach by the International Coach Federation. He lives on the Central Coast of California with his wife and 2 children. His family loves gardening, keeping bees, and cooking. And I'm delighted this morning to introduce and invite Josh to share his thoughts around why purpose is important.
Welcome to the EQ for Africa conference. My name is Joshua Friedman, and I'm the CEO of 6 Seconds, the global emotional intelligence community. We're working to increase emotional intelligence everywhere in the world. And our vision is 1 billion people practicing emotional intelligence. And at this conference, you're going to learn more about what it means to practice emotional intelligence and why that is a transformational tool set, why that awakens in you and the people around you a greater capability to navigate the complexities and challenges that we're facing today. And in the face of COVID and the global inequities, economic and social changes, environmental changes, we have to find some new tools. We have to find some ways to connect within ourselves and with one another so that we can move forward to create a future that's worthy of our children, to create a future that has true prosperity for us individually and together. And the question is, what are the skills that we need to develop and use in order to step forward into that kind of future? One of the themes that we're going to be talking about in this conference is the idea of purpose, and that emotions are a signal, they're a message that helps us understand what really matters. At a neurobiological level, emotions are signals, they're messages from you to you. And when you have strong feelings, what it actually means is that you're perceiving something that's important for your survival, something that's important to help you thrive. In the 6 seconds model of emotional intelligence, we have a process, 3 steps that are going to help you use your emotional intelligence and bring it forward in your life, personally and at work. And one of the competencies in this model is called pursue noble goals. Now, a noble goal, it sounds a little bit lofty and maybe something that's not for every one of us. But in fact, a noble goal is something that even a 4-year-old can start to think about. The real question of a noble goal is, what do you want to add to the world? We're all adding to the world all the time, right this very second. Not someday, not when we retire, not if we're successful, then we can do it now. This very second, we're each adding something to the world in the way we think, the way we feel, the actions that we take. Even when we're just sitting still, even right now, just listening, we're each adding something to the world. Our presence affects one another. Our feelings affect one another. The way that we're showing up, the way that we're engaging, the way that we're communicating, the way that we're leading and living, that is a teacher. What is it that you're teaching? What is it that you are contributing in the world? It's like a radio station that's always on. Are you a country and western station, or a rock and roll station, or a classic rock station, or a gospel station? What kind of songs are you sending out into the world? And is that what you really want to be sending? And emotions are a clue that help you figure out what you're sending and what you want to be sending. This competency that we call pursue noble goals, it's a measurable and learnable skill set. And we've seen even young children learn it. We've seen IT professionals learn it. We've seen professional athletes learn it. We've seen managers in all kinds of industries learn it. Now, interestingly, next week, we're releasing something called the State of the Heart Report, which is the world's largest study on emotional intelligence. And make sure you get your copy. It talks about the changing trends in emotional intelligence over the last decade. We started publishing this data in 2011. And the current data set, it's a randomized sample from over 129 countries. Pursue noble goals happens to be one of the strongest competencies in the African continent. And people in the African continent in this study score among the highest in the world of all of the world regions. And what that says to me is that there's this untapped potential, this heart of who we really want to be, this heart that is part of the African continent that's waiting to step forward and lead, not just in your country or your community, but actually in the world, to say, who do we really want to be? How do we want to grow and change and step forward? And how do we do that now, not someday? Pursue noble goals is not about this kind of dream vision of what we want in the future. It's about the present. And it's not so much about what we're going to do. Yes, we need to clean up the environment. Yes, we need to repair our businesses and our economies to thrive. Yes, we need to teach our children and build schools where they can flourish. Yes, we need healthcare. Yes, we need infrastructure. Yes, we need economy. But that's not what Noble Goal is really about. What Noble Goal is really about is who are you going to be? Not just when things are going well, but in times of challenge also. Who are you going to be in this season of struggle? Who are you going to be when people around you are feeling lost? Who are you going to be when the world as we know it is unstable and uncertain? Who are you going to be today? And are you going to be the person you really want to be? The skills of emotional intelligence, particularly this competency of pursue noble goals, is how we answer that question. Tuning into our emotions as messages, as signals. Intentionally pausing to reflect and consider the options that we have, to switch off the autopilot and step forward intentionally, and then to connect inside ourselves and connect beyond ourselves, to feel and know that we are part of this larger human story, and to help other people feel that. That is leadership. That is the transformational power. When we do that work on the inside, it changes what happens around us. It changes our relationships in the workplace. It changes our communities. It changes our families. It changes our schools, because people feel that connectedness. People feel that we are there together. People feel that we are open and belonging, and we're invited to say, yes, we can do this together. Yes, we are together. And there's so many forces in the world that say, no, it's not about us, it's about me. There's so many forces in the world that say what's inside doesn't really matter. It's all about what's outside. It's about the bling. It's about the social media post. It's about how many likes you get. And as we give away our power and we say we're going to depend on these external things, we lose sight of who we really are. We lose sight of this incredible capacity that we have to see and understand and belong and create a fabric. The fabric in the world is badly ruptured and disrupted. There are so many people who feel lost. There are so many people who feel disconnected. Stress is at an all-time high. Loneliness is at an all-time high. People don't know how to feel that we are together. They don't know how to feel that they are part of this fabric, that they are part of this song. And I hope that somehow we have the conviction and commitment and strength to say, we're here together. There's space for you. There's space for us. This, to me, is the promise of emotional intelligence in this time of profound disconnection and disruption, and particularly in Africa. In all of the diversity, in all of the complexity, in all of the incredible richness of history and culture, there's so many peoples and communities and languages and cultures and traditions. And what if we could honor those differences and at the same time feel the sameness, feel that sense of Ubuntu, that sense that we exist in our relationship with one another, that sense of Sawabuna, that I see you. To all our partners who are creating this event, our community members in Africa and around the world, our 6 Seconds team members who are part of this, those of you who have been part of the 6 Seconds community, and those of you who are new, I say welcome, and thank you for being here. Thank you for participating and showing up to learn and discover this world of emotions, and to find new tools that you can use. What I really hope you find in this conference is that you're able to tap in and bring together this incredible science and groundbreaking ideas about emotions and our real lives. Think about how can you take the ideas from this conference and make them part of your day-to-day. How can you help your children understand more about their emotions and communicate what they're feeling in a way that's respectful and honors who they are and honors the community that they're part of? How can you help employees in your own organization and in the clients that you work with and around you step forward and say, how I'm feeling matters. These feelings are messages that can help me figure out what really matters. These feelings can help me tune in to this larger sense of possibility, to my noble goal. And for you as a leader, as a change maker, as somebody who's committed to helping others grow, I hope that you find resources and tools and insights in this conference that you're going to be able to use in your day-to-day life and in your work. One of the principles at 6 Seconds is that wisdom lives within. And what this principle means is that inside each of us, we have these insights, we have this understanding of who we are and what we need. And that one of the great challenges and opportunities for us is to make space, to take a pause, to take a moment and reflect and feel. Not just think about what we're feeling, but actually feel it. Lean into that feeling in a place of discovery and curiosity and wonder and say, what is the wisdom of my feelings? What is the wisdom that's inside me? There's so much noise in the world. There's so much that distracts us from these little whispers of wisdom that are there. And what if we could trust that inner voice more? What if we could hear that inner voice more in ourselves, in one another? We could find that wisdom that's inside us. When we tune into emotions, we're getting data. Emotions are messages. There's not good ones and bad ones, or even positive and negative ones. All emotions have value. They're messages that are there to help us adapt to the world around us. They're messages to help us work together, understand one another, to see our challenges and solve our challenges. And in leadership, in change, in building a better future, there's so many challenges that we face. And if we can tap into these emotions as messages, if we can learn to understand this language of feeling, this universal human language, and we can find these places where our emotions are telling us, this is important. Now, values, it's something we talk about all the time in the world, in business, in life, in school, in families. But what is a value? It's not just an idea. It's an idea that we have emotions around. It's an idea that we care about. We feel the truth of it. When we feel the truth of it, emotions give us a little nudge, a little push to say, you're moving away from who you really want to be. You're moving away from what's really important. A value is something you're willing to sacrifice for. A value is something that you're willing to put your resources and time and energy into. So it's an idea charged with emotion. Purpose is a collection of these values. Purpose is a way of talking about how these values come together. And it's not something we find outside ourselves. Purpose is something we grow, we commit to, and we discover and we cultivate. And as we do the work, the purpose becomes more clear and we become more committed to it. It's not about following pleasure or hedonic happiness. It's not about a great glass of wine or a delicious meal, although those things are wonderful too. It's about that deeper sense of who do you really want to be in the world? How do you want to contribute? The ancient Greeks had a term, eudaimonic happiness. And this concept of the happiness that comes from meaning, the happiness that comes from being together with people who are committed to step forward and make that kind of difference in the world. That's something that we need more of in our world today. And so I hope in this conference you develop more insights and tools and skills that help you reach out and connect with others and together build that sense of community for what matters. This is the opportunity of a lifetime in times of crisis, in times of deep challenge, there is also deep opportunity. And we are fully alive in these times. The uncertainty, the pain, the struggle, they're very difficult and they're real. It's exhausting. And at the same time, something's changing. Something's calling us to step forward. Something's calling you. And I hope that in this conference you find new tools and new allies and new resources. And most of all, I hope you find space to hear that whisper within you, the whisper of your emotions that's calling you to deepen your sense of purpose, to create more energy and more commitment towards what truly matters for you and our shared world. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing about your discoveries along the way in the conference and beyond.
What a powerful and inspiring message from Joshua Friedman, CEO of 6 Seconds. And indeed, there is great opportunity for us to move forward in this new world and recommit and reconnect with our purpose. At this time, we are going to move quickly into our breakout sessions. And we're going to be exploring the idea of how to renew our clarity of purpose. For many people, this pandemic has been traumatic. And also for many, it has been a catalyst for change. What will we change toward? One important tool for answering this question is purpose. And with emotional intelligence, emotions can be a resource to clarify and strengthen purpose. We're going to break into our breakout sessions that will explore the idea of purpose and how we can practice emotional intelligence together. In preparation for this breakout session, please think about one of your goals and go into the session with it. We're going to explore your goal a little further in an activity in this 6 Seconds EQ Cafe that we are running as our breakouts over the duration of this conference. In this breakout session, we will discover what purpose means and why it's important. We'll also discover the role of emotions in helping us to clarify and commit to purpose. And we will support you in drafting your own purpose statement for 2021, 2022, and beyond. And so we're going to go into our breakout sessions, and I encourage you to truly immerse yourself in this experience of the breakout session as we practice emotional intelligence together. Our breakouts will be led by Ndali Ojekere, CEO at 8 Oaks Learning, a network leader, a 6 Seconds network leader based in Nigeria, and will also be facilitated by Enahoro Okaye, Managing Director, Pause Factory, based in Nigeria. Pause Factory is one of the 6 Seconds the 6 Seconds preferred partners across the continent who are actually collaborating with us to host this conference. So you will be in the breakout rooms. You will be in the breakout rooms for 90 minutes. Our breakout sessions are going to be for 90 minutes, and we look forward to hearing your experience. A quick note before I send you to the break, before you are sent to the breakout rooms, a quick note, please do tag us on social media and share your insights. We had mentioned in the emails that you received in the run-up to the conference that we have a prize draw for this conference, and they are fabulous prizes to be won. All will be revealed on day 3. The way to get yourself into the draw is to interact with us on social media. So throughout the course of today, any nuggets that you come across, any insights that you gain, anything you would like to share with the world, please do tag us on social media. Our two social media handles are at EQ4Africa and at PTS Africa. And I know the team are going to type both of these in the chat. You can also feel free to tag myself or any of the other preferred partners who are part of this journey. We can be found on Instagram, we can be found on Twitter, we can be found on LinkedIn, and we can be found on Facebook. So whichever is your preference, do tag us, share your insights. Each time you post on social media, your name will be entered into the prize draw. So make sure you tag us, because we won't know you've said anything unless you've tagged us. And our hashtags for today, hashtag EQ for Africa. So that's the number 4, EQ for Africa, and hashtag African EQ Revolution, because truly it is a revolution that we have started as we support you to practice emotional intelligence. And so I'm sending you to the breakout rooms. Enjoy this next part of the conference. The rooms are open. Please join the rooms. We have Ndali, who will be leading in one of the rooms, and we have Enahoro, who will be reading in the other. Welcome back to the main room. I trust that you have enjoyed the breakout session and that you have had a great time practicing emotional intelligence with the facilitators and those who are in your breakout. The last part of our day, I can't believe the time has flown by so fast, is a conversation. Again, we're carrying on with this idea of purpose, and our panel discussion is entitled, It Starts With Why. Purpose is connection to a goal bigger than self, a self-organizing aim that guides and imbues even the simplest actions with relevance and meaning. It is more than a goal, no matter how smart, because it's focused on the long term and on a deeper meaning. In his book and TED Talk, Start With Why, Simon Sinek explores the power of purpose, introducing a powerful idea called the Golden Circle, which provides a framework upon which organizations can be built, movements can be led, and people can be inspired. And it all starts with why. In this panel discussion, we are going to be exploring the idea of why, and why your why is extremely important. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation that will be facilitated by a good friend of PTS, Leroy Munesi. Leroy, at this time, I would like to hand over to you. Leroy is the COO consulting at Alexander Forbes, and he will be facilitating this conversation. And I hand over to Leroy, who will then introduce the panel that will be having this conversation with him. So Leroy, over to you. Thank you very much for being here and for facilitating this conversation.
So again, thank you for the opportunity, and a very bright and hearty morning to you all. I'm based in Johannesburg this morning, and we don't quite have a sunny day, but it's still a great day nonetheless. I'm hoping that those of you who are joining us from wherever you may be joining us are also having a lovely Tuesday morning as we seem to race on towards the end of 2021. Joining me this morning, and you'll pardon me, I'm going to be a little bit clumsy as I try and introduce our panelists this morning. As fate would have it, my machine was giving me a few issues a few moments ago, and so I will take the opportunity to use my phone to try and capture some of the information that I have about our different panelists. We've got 4 panelists who are joining us this morning, and they come from slightly different walks of lives, but in many ways they share a passion for what it is that we're doing today. And in sharing this passion, we hope that the engagement that we will have with them this morning will also be insightful and very much exciting to go through, at least for me as the moderator. But in many ways, we hope that it will be of no doubt valuable to each of you. So first and foremost, we've got Wanjira Matai. She's the chair of the Wangari Maathai Foundation. Someone who I believe has got great experience in this environment and is quite passionate about making an impact or leaving an impact on this planet. We're then joined by Avril Kidd. She's the Chief Executive Officer of EQ in Action, and also Emmanuel Mutama. Mutuma, pardon me, Mutuma. He's the CEO of Brighter Monday, a fellow I had the opportunity to have a very insightful leadership conversation with almost about a year ago when we were doing a session, again, part of PTS, on leadership insights on EQ. Last but not least, we have Alison Wanaina. She's the head of network learning and development at FSD Africa. She's going to be joining us as a fourth panelist for this morning. So without further ado, I'd like to invite the panelists to join us on the screen. If they could open up their cameras. And I do hope I got all your names correct, and pardon me if I didn't. We can blame it on COVID-19. That's the biggest excuse and the most valid excuse that we have nowadays. But if you don't mind, just very, very briefly to get the show on the road, we've got just under an hour to go through a broad conversation where we would like to draw from your own insights. But very briefly, if I could ask you to describe yourselves. I'm sure you're used to being asked to introduce yourselves, but because we're talking emotional intelligence, I would like to get a little bit emotional and get to some of the softer elements. But if you were to describe yourselves in a handful of words, what would those words be and why? So I'll start almost alphabetical order. I guess, Avril, you step up to the plate first. And if you could take 2 or 3 sentences to just describe yourself and tell us why you would describe yourself that way.
Thanks very much for the intro. So I think I would describe myself as passionate about people, about life, and being one of those people who are really fortunate after 20 years in corporate to be living my purpose. And every day doing what I do really drives me. And I love seeing the difference that we can facilitate, because we can't make the difference for people because they can only change themselves, but just by providing tools to support people to live different lives and better lives just is so motivating and exciting. So yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell. Mom of dogs, children, whatever, and just really passionate about life and doing life with everybody. Yeah.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And again, welcome to the panel. Welcome to the panel. Mr. Emmanuel, over to you.
Thanks, Leroy. Thanks once again for this opportunity. So, Emmanuel, I'm the CEO for Brighter Monday. How I describe myself is I work in a very diverse field where we connect people with opportunities. So that's the recruitment space. It's quite an emotive environment to be at. There's a lot of expectation for both sides of the equilibrium for us. For me, I'm passionate about getting people to be independent, and we interact a lot with people, and seeing them get financially stable after they get their dream jobs. That's one of the best feelings for me. I also love hiking. Last year when COVID hit us really hard, spent some time to visualize and get to the peak of the Huru Peak of Kilimanjaro, which we did successfully. So
wow.
I'm glad we did that and taking more challenges. So I like challenging myself, I think, on a daily basis and taking something that will push me to the next level.
All right, awesome. That's great. From a corporate junkie who's passionate about having an impact to a bush running, mountain climbing, hiking fanatic, so to speak. Awesome. Thank you. Great to meet you. If I'll take a slight different spin to this one, and I'll jump the alphabet and go all the way to the back end and ask Wanjira to jump in. Could you describe yourself, Wanjira?
Thanks, Leroy. Great to see everybody. I would say I'm an advocate, activist, fellow traveler. I like to think of myself as right now, I guess, passionate about climate change and the urgency that we have to address it, and the role that I can play in advocating and bringing voices, especially of young people. I'm the chair of the Wangari Maathai Foundation, and the work we do is really focused on creating platforms for young people to find their voices. And I get a lot of energy from that. And by the way, Leroy, the climate change discussions are from an intellectual discussion about an emotional discussion about change and action. So very exciting days ahead.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that, Wanjira. That's actually a very interesting nugget. Definitely a note to self to consider that dynamic, which is not, it's not the obvious one, but I admire your, as you say, your desire to give people a voice, to give young people a voice, because I think I grew up in the time where the song, I believe the children are the future, that's from the 80s. And at some point, it seems as though, we've become a little bit disconcerted, or we're missing that dynamic on how us as adults have a huge responsibility to set up the next generation and ensure that they have a voice and can have firstly, they can inherit a planet that will still be viable, but ultimately continue to ensure the success of our human race. So thank you for that one, Jira. Thank you for that. Last but not least, and I think this one, I may have mixed it up a little bit earlier on, but Mwihaki, I hope I pronounced your name well. Mwihaki, could you describe yourself to kick off the conversation?
So I'm an introvert who masquerades as an extrovert. And yes, I see Wanjira laughing because she knows exactly what I mean. I'm a storyteller. I love books. And I think a storyteller is a grown-up bookworm. So I was a bookworm as a kid, and now I embrace the land of stories because I believe that they're so powerful. Stories have allowed me to travel this world. And for that, I have seen the world, experienced emotion across different places, different spaces, different times, and realize that at the end of the day, we actually are all human. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya, a town that I love. It's my hometown. I get frustrated about it, but I'm a proud Nairobian. And my day job is trying to balance my life as a person who's thinking very deeply about how do I show up in the best way possible for my team, for my family, for myself. Yeah, that's who I am.
Amazing, amazing. Nice to meet you, Mwihaki. And that introvert-extrovert dynamic is definitely one that many people try and deal with. But I think that masquerade is one that I think a lot of us benefit from, because once we get below the surface, and I guess we offer you free beverages for the opportunity to hear you tell stories, we might get to learn a thing or two from someone like you. So welcome, karibu to the panel. Great. So in the theme that we've selected for the panel this morning, which is quite simply, it starts with why. We're going to be exploring different angles and different elements around not just emotional intelligence from a broad topic point of view, but also zoning in on clarifying or getting a renewed sense of clarity around purpose. And from the conversations that at least I've had sight of or been privileged to be part of this morning, I've picked up different nuggets. So in my day job, I'm paid to make sure processes happen the way that they should. So I'm more transactional and more activity driven. But what I find very interesting interacting with people and professionals like most of you on this panel is the opportunity not to forget the softer side of things, or at least the more intuitive side of things. And I guess there is a link between delivering great results, generating success, with ensuring that it is meaningful, it is noble, and it connects with the heart. So to kick off our conversation this morning, I'd like to pose a question to Avril. And the question for you, Avril, is what is the link between emotional intelligence, or EQ, and purpose? Building off the background that some of our participants have had the opportunity to complete an EQ assessment, which is named the Brain Profile. Could you draw some insights on how they can utilize that assessment, which has been made available to them, to strengthen their understanding or their application of purpose? So back to you, Avril. What is the link between emotional intelligence and purpose?
Okay. So emotional intelligence, really in the simplest definition, is about being smart with our feelings, being able to understand what we are feeling and why we're feeling, and to use that to make better decisions. Now, when we start to look at our purpose, purpose is really about our guiding light or North Star. It gives us the why, the reason for our existence, the reason for what we do. So when we link that with the emotional intelligence, whenever we're going to make a decision, if we've got a strong purpose and a clear understanding of who it is we want to be and what we want to bring to the world, whenever we're going to make a decision, we're actually going to automatically check it against that and look at, is that in line with who I want to be? Is that in line with how I want to show up in the world? And we talk about the why. And when we relate that to our model, the 6 seconds EQ and action model, that also works off the same as the golden circle in terms of the why, the what, and the how. So if we think that our why is the same as our drive or our give yourself, whilst the what is our know yourself, and the how is our choose yourself. So when we start relating that to the model, and then we look at the brain profile that you've all got. So hopefully everybody's got that with them at the moment. And you will see on that brain profile that there are 3 different scales. There's a focus scale, there's a decision scale, and there's a drive scale. And those are color-coded in line with that model as well of know yourself, choose yourself, and give yourself. So over the next 3 days, what we are going to do is we're going to unpack one scale of that model. And we are going to be inverse today, and we are going to literally start with that bottom scale of drive, because that relates strongly to our purpose. So when we look at that scale of drive, you will see that on the one side, there's the practical, and on the other side, there's the idealistic. Now, for those of you who might find yourself more on the practical side, that's when our brains are really into driving results in the here and now. It's about being motivated to get things done now and more in the short term. For those of you who find yourselves more on the idealistic side, that is for the people who need the why. So you will often hear the sort of telltale signs is when you're talking about something that needs to be done, and those people say, but why? What is the big picture with it? So the idealistic is about the bigger picture. It's about looking forward to what it is we are driving towards and what we want, as opposed to the here and the now. So there are 4 brain profiles that actually are on that idealistic side, which is the visionary, the guardian, the energizer, and the sage. So we'll see differences over the next 3 days between those profiles. But those 4 profiles are the profiles that are looking for the why, that are driven by the bigger picture, and may not always pay as much attention to the day-to-day details. Because unless the brain is excited about the why and knows what the purpose is, it's not going to focus on any more detail. So for those people on the more practical side, you will find that you are motivated more in the here and now and getting things done. But you may not always be looking as far afield to the bigger picture as to what, where you're going to and what your why is. And then with that last scale, it's our green bubble, as you call it, and you'll see that all the bubbles have different sizes. And if the drive bubble is your biggest bubble on that page, this is saying you've got an incredible amount of energy. So a lot of drive and a lot of energy. If it happens to be your smallest bubble, you might find yourself lacking in energy at the moment. But the amazing thing with these profiles is that when we take the profile, and we complete the assessment, is a snapshot at a moment in time. So it is not static. We can change it. We can move to where we want to be. And our circumstances also impact that. And that's what's so amazing about emotional intelligence, is that we can develop it all the time, and we can build ourselves to where we want to be and to be able to show up in the world that we want to, in the way. And the more purpose-driven we are, the more we take ownership for ourselves and we look at the impact that we're actually having in the world. So I hope that's given a little bit more clarity on that.
Amazing, amazing. And I think it's also helped to set up some of the work that we're going to go through over the next few days, building off the assessment and some of the conversations we're having today, but really pointing to the opportunity to expand on our understanding and draw on those insights. So great answer, and thank you for capturing it that way, Avril. Appreciate it. And I guess you did talk about driving action. You mentioned it here and there in your response. But moving on to Mwihaki, purpose is the key driver of action. In your experience, Mwihaki, how has the COVID pandemic influenced, affected, or altered your purpose or your path for your purpose? And have you taken steps to keep aligned, or how have you taken steps to keep aligned, connected, and motivated? It would be interesting to hear from you as the storyteller around the table, your insights around purpose as a driver for action and how you've been able to navigate it through the pandemic. Mwihaki?
Yeah. Thank you, Leroy. I should have mentioned that actually I'm in what I call my second chapter, which means, I wasn't always a storyteller professionally. I used to be in public health for almost 20 years, and then I did that left turn. And I think that what last year, especially during the pandemic, reminded me of my own sort of shift was that everybody collectively went through that radical moment of, okay, especially people in the formal sector. I think everyone, but I think, we're speaking to people in the formal sector. When your job is taken away, when your commute is taken away, when your corner office is gone and the size of your panel on the Zoom screen is just the same size as everybody else, when your clothes are taken away, right? Because you have your power suit and everything, who are you, right? What's left when all of that is stripped away? And I think that there was a gift in the pandemic, and the gift was that moment of sitting and saying, when the spotlight is on me and I'm naked in it, what actually matters? And I think that for a lot of people, it was that moment to start thinking and reflecting on that why, right? And for some, they realize, actually, even if I've lost my job, we have our health, my family's still okay. For some people, it was, I find myself in this space where I have time on my hands. I can actually do that thing that I've been so afraid to do. I can finally dive into it and say, Corona forced me sort of into it. And I think that in some ways, that's how a lot of people started unpacking the thing of purpose. So like I say, for some, it was that reset about, actually what matters is the people in my life and the relationships that I have with them, right? For some people, it was actually, why do I spend all my time in this office space when confronted with a scary reality? It's not the most important thing in my life. Actually, it was a means to an end. And so I think in that way, a lot of people are in that space of purpose. And it was somewhere where I found myself a few years ago and started asking, so actually, what do I want to do? And not that what I was doing before didn't matter, but summer, spring, none is better than the other. They just come when it's time for them to come. And at PAUCA, which is the storytelling company that I lead, we're a very purpose-driven institution. And so luckily for us, we are writers, so we can write from anywhere. But what was interesting is that it was a reminder for us to check in with each other about the things that are most important to us. And I remember, because my husband and I were now sharing an office space in our living room, he would come to me after our weekly, we have a weekly, sort of meeting at the beginning of the week. And we start off literally with half an hour of, how was your weekend? What are people excited about? Share a verse from the day, share a verse from the Bible, or what's your quote of the day? Give us inspiration about how you're moving forward. And I think for us, and you'd say like, what are you spending your time talking and chatting about? And I say, actually, that's how we show up as people and are able to continue moving forward in our work, because we've done this sort of emotional reset and we see each other and we're reminded about what is important to us as a team. So I think that was a very important tool for us as we navigated COVID and being at home and being separated from each other physically as we continue to move forward in our collective purpose.
That's amazing. And I think those realities that seemingly were unexpected triggers to kind of shift our thinking and get us to see things very differently. I guess fortunately for you, having already started your transition from chapter 1 to chapter 2, you were a lot more comfortable dealing with the change and the opportunity for change. Whereas I guess for some people, we might still be a little more elementary in how we have to deal with these changing circumstances and then try and find the alignment and connection between our circumstances and still find a way to keep to that North Star. I think Avril mentioned how purpose can be that North Star that we walk towards or strive to get to. But great, thank you for sharing. And I guess your office is now much larger than it was, because usually a living room is much bigger, though it's shared. It's bigger than what it was.
Well, there's more of us in it. But we were happy that we had that space. We were grateful for our home more than ever. I
can imagine. I think so true that we've also found more things to be grateful for through the pandemic, as it has triggered some of those changes in our lives. Thank you for that, Mwihaki. Emmanuel, you talked about how, at least you described yourself as someone who's involved in helping people, and from an organizational point of view, your business helps to connect people with opportunities. In your perspective, why is it important for organizations to encourage that alignment or connection between their employees and their individual purpose and that of the organization? So the singular purpose that individuals or employees may have and the collective purpose that organizations may have. In your experience, why is it important for there to be alignment or a connection between the two?
Sure. So first of all, I think the basic understanding is that for people to work together, they must, they must match. There's an element of having an ability, of course, that the organization is looking for. And one of the biggest challenges we see as an organization is the level of mismatch, where, we'll connect you with what we believe is a good talent, but the fact that they derived in a different environment doesn't mean that they're going to thrive in the organization because of the level of mismatch. So, this takes us, I think, to the question that we just asked. And to be frank, I think it's logical to read from the same script between the organization on one hand and the employee or the professional working within that organization. And under the common goal, the common goal is to ensure that there is the workplace productivity that it is expected, I think, from an organization point of view. So having employees that are optimal, that are utilizing their talent fully, I think is really critical and important. For that gratification, because you're a professional, you train, you can give some value. So for the employee, there's that gratification that comes with it. Again, I think having a common understanding on the direction that the organization and the employee takes helps the environment because there's a lot of motivation, because you're working with increased collaboration to achieve one goal, which should be common. So for us as Brighter Monday, we have a lot of data because we connect with millions of professionals who are looking for opportunities on one hand and thousands of companies. So we take advantage to try and understand the Kenyan market. So 2 years ago, we did research. We call it Millennials in a Digital Workplace. This was actually even before COVID. And we sampled, especially young professionals. These are people who are between 18 years old to 40 years old, and asked them, what's an ideal work environment to work with? What's an ideal company to work for? And what are the attributes that make you feel that they are ideal company to work for? And top of the list, apart from the work culture, was having a sense of pride of working within that organization. So that took us aback, just to understand that from a Kenyan context, that people want to have relatable values for companies that they're working for, and they need to be connected to the vision, which now connects us to the conversation about purpose. They need to understand how they connect into achieving that vision, and that really stood out. And this is research from over 20,000 professionals that are sharing that. So they say an environment that gives them open communication, that is two-way communication, which is more instantaneous, and an environment, of course, that gives them recognition. Again, that is, I think, a reward that you provide an employee to be productive. So taking all these learnings, I think, to my personal organization, we try as much as possible to align personal goals with organization goals. And one of the best examples I have is that as an organization, we need to meet revenue expectation. So a few months ago, when we didn't meet the monthly revenue expectation, my head of sales told me, actually, this is really stressing me because my personal goal is actually to finalize on a project that I'm working on, which connects to the reward I get from commissions if I attain the organization purpose in terms of objectives for the month. So aligning those personal goals, which are personal for the individual, helps connect to the organization purpose. And the final bit is on training and development. If you identify a need within organization, you invest in people to make them better through their career progression. And if you invest in them, then they're giving their best. And on the other side, the organization is meeting the expectation. So that is really critical from within as an organization, even as we support many other organizations, but it's the same message that we share because we believe that employers in the workplace have a role to play. And selling that vision, I think, has been critical and one of the most important items we've seen in getting the workplace optimal in terms of productivity.
Great, great, very useful, and thanks for sharing your specific example of that alignment between individual goals and individual purpose with the organizational purpose. I'm a very big fan of many different sports, as well as a big fan of certain movies that show smaller armies that are more aligned, conquering bigger armies that are probably less aligned. And I think when you find successful soccer teams or rugby teams or in team sports specifically, you can sense that alignment between the individual and what the team wants to achieve. And in those, the 300 and those Greeks are going across to conquer some other guys, and it's a small group, but they're aligned, they're focused. And that unity, and you talked about, they can relate to it. You said relatability of bringing things together. I guess all of that then makes sure that you're able to take advantage of what you're trying to do and you're connecting it towards that common goal. And so that alignment, I guess, to your point, is really critical. And there are different ways to do it. And you've highlighted a few, including training and development that you would invest in to make sure that there's clarity and there's empowerment towards that common purpose. Great, great. Thanks for that, Emmanuel. Wanjira, moving back to you, and you did make mention of climate change. And of course, nowadays, when someone mentions climate change, you can't not think of the young lady, Greta Thunberg, I think it is, who's seemingly found her purpose very, very early on in life. I think at her age, compared to the majority of us, she's been exposed to and is doing things that have a material impact, not just in her community, but at a global scale. And the question that we have for you to unpack a little bit is your thoughts on leadership on the African continent, and whether or not you believe that encouraging people to identify, clarify, and align their purpose at an early age would have a positive impact on African leadership. Do you think that the work on purpose could help us to change the narrative for young people if we invested a little bit more in them from that perspective? Wanjira?
Thanks, Leroy. Yes, yes, thank you very much. I mean, I think it's such a crucial question, but I want to start by first underscoring the fact that knowing our stories and knowing our heroes and having positive role models is a crucial part of that. I was struck by the fact that you mentioned Greta, because Greta is a symbol globally of environmental activism. But there are so many amazing young African activists, Vanessa Nakate, Liz Wathuti, who are equally passionate, equally driven, and on the front lines of the climate change agenda. I think for Africa, one of the most important things we have to do, and that's why Mwihaki's work is so crucial, is to tell the stories, tell our stories, and to make sure that children have, all of us have projections in heroes and heroines that look like us and are like us, because that will be part of believing in what is possible and believing in the possibility of those journeys. So that's a really important one. And I think one of the things I love about EQ and this EQ journey is the awareness component. I've really talked about know yourself, being aware of what it is that I want to do, why it is that I want to do it is important as well. But knowing that you have the choice, that you can actually decide that this is what I want to do. So I think in leadership, one of the most important things, and especially for as we invest in young people, is to give them that space to know that, you know, the world is their oyster. They have to be passionate. What gives them energy? What gives them energy? And not necessarily, it will come out very quickly when this is not something you want to do. So you could say you're interested in climate, and after 2 seconds, you're bored out of your mind, because this is really, it doesn't give you energy. But if you watch these young people, they're on the streets. I give you an example. One of the most important experiences I've had with young people and their sense of purpose. Elizabeth Wathuti, she heads campaigns at the Wangari Maathai Foundation. And one day she saw, and all of us woke up to Twitter, and well, when Twitter was working, I don't know if it's working anymore, but the woke up to Twitter and an image of a tree stump that had been cut down somewhere in Nairobi. And we all saw it, we were all outraged, and most of us tweeted about how outraged we were. But Leroy, Liz saw this image and she decided to find out where this tree was from a Twitter image of a stump. She spent whatever energy she had and found this tree stump in an institution somewhere in Nairobi. And she decided to go there and interview the head teacher and ask why on earth they had cut that tree stump. And the reason this tree stump was interesting was because it had a little sign at the bottom that said, planted by Wangari Maathai, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate 2004. And so she, like all of us, were outraged. How would anybody cut a tree that had this important sign of somebody we all admire? And so Liz went there and confronted the head teacher of this institution and demanded to see where this tree stump was, because by all the intelligence she had, it was in this school. Sure enough, that tree stump was there with the sign, and it was, you know, she took pictures of it and she asked why this tree had been cut down. She was informed that the tree was actually very dangerously leaning on against a swimming pool, and it had been struck by lightning, which he even showed pictures of the tree leaning and very dangerously threatening the lives of children. So the tree did have to go, and that was important because she actually had now seen. But what we didn't see, and she was able to then show us, was next to that tree stump were 10 trees that had been planted to replace that one. And that narrative was so powerful because she then came back and updated the thousands of very angry Kenyans on Twitter that this tree actually had to go, and here is the story. And actually we should celebrate this school because there are 10 trees that are coming up to replace this one. That is leadership. Nobody asked Liz to go and take a look at that tree. She took herself, not even me, who considers myself a very committed environmentalist, but I really admired that sense of drive. Nobody tells you to do what you're passionate about. Nobody sends you to go and do it. And if at that young age, that drive is there, that energy is there, we have those of us who are in spaces of leadership, opportunity, in philanthropy, must support those young leaders and create spaces for them, because that's what will transform the African continent. It's drive like that, deep sense of purpose. She knows exactly where she needs to be.
Wow, wow. That's, I goosebumps. I found that to be phenomenal, that someone so young could be so courageous, so industrious, to go all the way out to find out the real story behind that picture that was tweeted, and then have such a profound impact on the wider community when she's now able to share the true story behind the situation, and more likely than not, change perspectives and create more positive energy just by having taken leadership in that role. And that's really, really profound. And I like the way you talk about heroes and role models that we need to, I guess, surface and identify so that more young people can emulate and look up to and have the courage to step up to the plate when opportunities present themselves. Because I guess the contra entry to that is that we continue to just drone into a dizzy state of defeat, so to speak, if we're not creating those sparks of opportunity for people to step up to the plate. And I really found that very, very inspirational. It's a great story. It's an absolutely great story. And I think that's a nice segue to position us back to Mwihaki, the storyteller, about what you see as the place for purpose in your vision for storytelling, and more specifically, African stories. Mwihaki, your thoughts?
So I love the story that Wajira shared, because essentially it says that you can get mad or you can get active, right? And what we want for people to do is to get active. And I'm struck by, not quite, well, sort of similar vein. A couple of years ago, somebody shared with me very nicely, this Time magazine was celebrating women firsts, and it had this wonderful template with pictures of women of all, ages or races. And I was like, wow, this is wonderful. Women who are the first in their field. And I went through it and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, they're all American women. And I was like, you see now, this is how Africans are always left out of the situation. Our stories are never told, and da, 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 da. And, like that young lady, I was like, but wait, I'm a storyteller. Paukwa was, less than 6 months old at that time. So I said, you know what? We also have firsts in this country, right? And we embarked on a 30-day collection telling the stories of women firsts in Kenya. And it was everything from the first accountant, first doctor, first archer who represented us at the Olympics, first professor of the arts, also just to show this sort of breadth of experiencing that and places that women were making an impact. And for me, I think that that's my big takeaway from that, is that I couldn't get mad at Time magazine, an American company that was telling the stories of American women.
Yeah.
It is not up to us to talk about how we are not in spaces. It is up to us to reclaim for ourselves our stories, our history, and show up in the spaces where we want to be known and we want to be heard. And for us at Paukwa, you know, we tell a story every day. And what we're trying to do is to flood the internet with this different narrative of what the African experience is. So our stories are factual. Our stories are rooted in positivity, because we're like, there's enough death, destruction, poverty porn going on about Africa. We're not trying to add to that narrative, because we know that that is not our single story. And then our stories celebrate both the historical and the contemporary. And for us, what has been an interesting journey is that even as we feel that we are the storytellers bringing, you know, this light, we are educated ourselves whenever we go into our research, whenever we go into interviews. And one of the things that I think has been also pivotal is we didn't say that, and I admit that we're lucky and, you know, we're probably different because we're writers. Our measures of success are not the number of stories that we put out. It's not very, you know, you can't look at it on a spreadsheet. But when an individual comes back to us and says that, for instance, you did a collection on the streets of Nairobi, and I use that to take my 2 sons on a walkabout around our city and learn about our history. We're like, that's a win. That's how stories are used. We have somebody else who told us, you know, I'm now traveling Kenya because of the county series that you did, because I didn't think that there was anywhere to travel in Kenya. All the places I see in magical Kenya are very much around encouraging tourists to come. But I saw, you know, stories about our historical heroes, our myths, our culture, and I want my family to actually learn that. So I think that when you are at this special place where you can marry, you know, purpose and be bold enough to actually embrace where it will take you, and know that that might not necessarily make sense to the world, and accept that you will be the outlier. My mother still doesn't understand what I do, but so long as you're happy with that, it's amazing how the universe gives back, because you are able to find your other institutions and people who get you, who are part of your tribe. And what has happened is that we have actually gotten commercial clients from people who have followed our stories and said, you know what, we actually like the way that Paukwa tells stories. There's an ethos and a value in terms of your positivity and how you're showing diversity in your African stories that resonates with us as a commercial institution. And we want you to tell our stories like that, because yes, we still have an annual report that we want to put out, but we now recognize that there's a different way to do that. So I would just love to encourage people to provide whatever is their special sauce in the world, and you'll be surprised who want to be, you know, a part of that salad mix. Yeah, thank you.
Phenomenal. That's really phenomenal. I think it continues to build on the different comments that have been shared, or the different insights that have been shared. But I like the way you draw it again to action, and the opportunity for us to stimulate or trigger action by telling stories, by shifting the narrative, by not playing the victim card and saying we can do something about this, and stepping up to the plate and creating other opportunities for people to see more. I love the way you're sharing that. You get feedback from people who are saying they realize there's so much more to see in their beautiful country, but until they intersected or interacted with your stories, or what you were sharing, they may not have seen that. And I guess it's a great opportunity to expand our horizons, to contribute, to influence, and ultimately drive the collective progression of all of us as a continent. And I think our diversity gives us so many opportunities, because there are different stories from different angles, different perspectives, and ultimately multitudes of opportunities. Great. Really lovely to hear, Mwihaki. Really lovely to hear. You talked about how your mother doesn't know what you do in real life. and I'll use that as a latch on point to go back to Wanjira. Wanjira, your late mom left an immense legacy, and you know, we are proud of the impact that she had. And it is said that when your why is clear, it gives you strength to follow through on your actions. When you think of your mother, the late Wangari Maathai, her life and her legacy, do you agree and would you agree with this statement?
Well, absolutely. I think all of us would agree with that. I was fortunate to have worked with my mother for very many years, and I did think she was a bit crazy because, you know, this sort of drive that you have when you're living at the exclamation point of your passion is unstoppable, and sometimes it is even against your own deep sense of self-preservation. And so she was very committed. Everybody knows that for her, Kenya and Kenyans were paramount. She made us clearly proud of ourselves as Kenyans, but also to love our country, that nobody will love your country more than you and nobody cares about your country more than you. That was a very clear message. And so often when she was fighting for Uhuru Park or Karura Forest, it seemed such a distant effort, even from me who was supporting her. I would sometimes say, really, is it really worth it? And you feel this clarity of purpose, clarity of vision. And so it is true that when you are driven by a deeper calling and a deeper sense, you know, everything else disappears. There's just a laser sharp focus on what you need to do. It doesn't mean you're not scared. It doesn't mean you're not alone in these circumstances. And in fact, what really is important is that you find solidarity. And those of us, the rest of us who are not in the center, show up for these people, show up for especially people who put themselves out for us, because they are so focused, they don't necessarily think about themselves. And so it was really, couldn't be truer, that statement, that you are focused, you know where you're going. And one of, you know, the three words that I always share that to me represented what she was. She was extremely patient. When you're working on purpose, it doesn't happen quickly, but that's okay because you're there for the long haul. This is an extremely slow burner, as we call it. You work on these things for the long term, for as long as you will. I love the poem that was said, I forget the author again, but we are planting winter wheat that other hands will harvest, that they might have enough to eat after we are gone. We'll plant shade trees that we will not sit under. We'll struggle for justice, though we'll never see it flower. Our children's children will live in peace one day. This is an extremely slow burning, patient process. She was extremely committed. Everyone knows this 10-year battle to save Karura Forest. This is not an everyday thing. The commitment to keep at it, but the solidarity of those around you to help you get there. And then she was obviously very courageous because this was not easy work. So I couldn't agree more. And she's a great example for all of us. And she has inspired a lot of young people, a lot of us in whatever spaces we occupy to do so with absolute abandon.
Wow, wow. That's extremely exciting to connect that dynamic in terms of a real life, true life story. Where purpose was fuel and purpose translated into such great impact through an individual, but collectively lifting up more than just that individual herself. And you're so right to say that it is a slow burn. It will take time. It's not an overnight transition or overnight eventuality. It's something that happens over time, and it takes patience, it takes persistence, but no doubt, like you said earlier, again, the commitment to getting to that point sometimes compromises your own self, to an extent, but ultimately takes you towards that bigger vision and that bigger goal, and it is profound. I think we ultimately continue to admire the work that your mother did. And I'm excited to know that her daughter is carrying that flag on and running as hard as she can and having a great impact. So thank you, Wanjira, for sharing your thoughts. Looking at this dynamic and some of the myths around finding your purpose and its importance. No doubt it leaves us open to different angles and different perspectives. I'll take the liberty to refer to Avril as my homegirl because we're on the southern side of the continent together. Avril, what are some of the myths that you are aware of when we relate to purpose and the importance of purpose? And what would you say to debunk or at least to unpack and help us to demystify some of these myths? Avril?
Okay, so one of the things I think that people always think is that your purpose has to be earth-shattering. It's got to be this incredibly powerful statement. And I think in listening to the stories that have been so amazingly shared today, you can see it doesn't have to be this earth-shattering statement, but it can have a massive impact. Some really simple ones have been like Walt Disney's purpose was to make people happy. It's a really simple statement. And it can just be, you know, if you think of teachers, they're educating. And I love the one that comes from that Drive video that says he taught two generations of children to read. That is really powerful, you know. So when we start to reframe and just look at it, and even Mahatma Gandhi was to be the change you wish to see in the world, is you can keep it really simple. The other myth is that you can only have one purpose. And that's also not true because our purpose can evolve over time as we experience different things. And Jay Shetty says that give your purpose the space to grow and change, and it will deepen, but stay flexible to it. And I think that's really important. There are a couple of other myths, but you know, like one that your purpose and profit cannot be linked. And yet you can, you know what, you can really live into it. So I think people mustn't hide behind their limiting beliefs that purpose is something that is outside of how you live and what you do, because we can live our purpose every day in what we do and how we do it. And one of my favorite ones that came from one of the National Geographic videos was to be the change for the world. You know, or to be the best for the world rather than to be the best in the world. And there's a subtle difference, but it's incredibly powerful because when I'm being the best for the world, I'm giving back to everybody else. To be the best in the world, I'm focusing on me. And I think those are some basic myths that if we can debunk those and start to really look for what we are passionate about, what drives us, what excites us, and then link that to the change we want to see in the world, we can be really, really powerful. And just at my two co-panelists, the ladies' stories have just been so amazing. And I think they've given such practical ways that people can make a massive difference by following their purpose.
Amazing and incredible, no doubt. The myths that, you know, we end up taking and giving too much currency because either, you know, someone has tweeted and retweeted it too many times and keeps coming up over and over. But the reality is we need to do a little bit more in terms of digging around, ask the questions, validate. And I like your example now about a subtle change, instead not being the best to or in the world, but for the world. I think that's profound in just how it shifts your thinking when you look at it that way. And I guess that goes to, again, the whole concept that you've narrated to us, in that whilst we talk about purpose and how we understand the why, the impact should really be much, much bigger than what you could try and contain in your wallet or try and contain on your income statement. It's much, much bigger. And I'm sure over the next few days, we will try and touch on the various resources that we can access. I think yourself and other role players in this conference will also share amazing insights so that all of us can gain from the investment in research and the investment in this field of study, which we can apply in our day-to-day lives. Thank you, homegirl. Emmanuel, before we bring the panel session to a close, in your organization, which, as you've alluded, plays in the recruitment space and helps to connect people with opportunities in organizations, and no doubt through the pandemic, there were many challenges that presented themselves, more so from a technology point of view. And I guess our realization that it was now business unusual and organizations had to start shifting beyond the constraints from an infrastructure point of view. Can you share with us your experiences on the people side and how a clear organizational purpose impacted how you and your organization were able to successfully navigate through the pandemic?
So first of all, I think we're quite fortunate for the fact that we are a tech-driven company, and we're able to, pivot and go to work from home within a day. That was not the case for most of the micro, small, medium enterprises and small, medium enterprise organizations that didn't have the know-how. Really got a lot of people off their footing. So we had the right infrastructure, but again, this was due to the fact that in 2019, we had an event that wasn't pleasant because we had a terror attack in our office blocks in Nairobi. And with that, it really got us off foot, if we must say. That was one of the learnings we took before COVID the next year, that we had time to pivot working remotely. But I think the biggest example that comes from that is sitting down a week after, really feeling privileged because we never lost any people from our office, but there was an impact for sure around the complex. And thinking about how fortunate we were to be alive, and sitting down, thinking about your future. And one of the things is that during that moment, we were caught off foot. We had a chance to redefine our purpose as an organization because we noticed that our purpose is actually bigger than who we are as an organization for two factors. We are dealing with an emotive solution offering, which is employment and unemployment. And we are just in between as much as we're not controlling the whole equation. And for us, that was a big thing because on one end, when we were reflecting, some of our customers were not happy because we were not really available because we were really disrupted. That's one of the things that stood out. And we have tracking tools that we measure our net promoter score on service delivery. And with that, of course, we created a purpose which revolves around customer obsession and ensuring that we are available 24/7. So we had an opportunity, of course, to pivot the flexi working hours during that period, the whole of 2019. But the more critical part of this is the foundation that we laid down, because issues around trust, that you can trust employees are actually giving their best without any physical supervision. So creating that culture of trust was one of the great learnings, a culture of accountability and taking ownership of what is expected of you at any given time, even when you're working remotely, became another really critical foundation of, what helped us possibly go and work from home within one day. So, we have a culture of integrity that is all connected to our purpose of serving our customers and ensuring that 24/7, we're actually addressing that need of matching the right talent and opportunities, but more so even pivoting on impact projects on, decreasing the levels of unemployment by working with different stakeholders to, for skill empowerment, especially for young people, that increases the chances of getting a job within the labor market. So for us, that was, I think, the chemistry around it, with one hand being infrastructure readiness based on an eventful event, and two, the foundation that we created, which revolves around trust, purpose, and integrity.
Thanks, man. Really good to hear how you deliberately and intentionally took certain steps to find your way through the situation as it was going. And I guess your organization, as you alluded, had the dexterity and the flexibility that some organizations may not have had. But it's great to hear how you were very, very specific around how you wanted to make sure that the people element and the customer obsession was central to translating the strategies that you had for your organization. And I think even from our previous interaction as part of our executive thoughts on EQ a few months back, I've always found it to be amazing how you as an individual are so passionate about not just the, let's call it the corporate crunchies that you have to put in place, but some of the added stuff that you know are infused in ensuring that organizations are successful. And you can work through weaving the hard stuff and the soft stuff, so to speak, to generate success for your organization. So we're going to wrap up our conversation for this morning. I know it's almost afternoon. It's actually afternoon in Nairobi, right? It's after midday. We're 52 minutes behind you here in Johannesburg. But thank you all to the panelists. And just to close off the session, I'd like to do a quick spin around Wanjira Maitai from the Wangari Maathai Foundation. What are your closing comments for this session?
Well, Leroy, it's funny you say that. I heard 5 things that this woman, Bonnie Ware, wrote a book about the top 5 regrets of the dying. This has been such a difficult season for everybody. And so I was reflecting on those 5 things because in many ways, everybody has spoken about how COVID changed so much for them. But here they are. And in a funny way, they don't seem so outlandish. I wish I had the courage to live life true to myself. And this is what we are talking about today. And then I wish I had not worked that hard. That was somebody else's dying wish. The other one was, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings more. That's an interesting one. And I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. The last one was, I wish I'd let myself be happier. So I wish those 5 things for all of us. Thanks.
Wow. Wow. Very profound. Very profound. Thank you very much for that, Wanjira. Mwihaki, over to you. And on behalf of the Paukwa House, what are your closing comments for us?
When I think about purpose, I think that one of the big aha moments for me was stop seeking work-life balance. It's impossible. Try and think about work-life integration. And that means that my work is deeply aligned to my purpose. And therefore it doesn't feel like I work 80-hour work weeks, because there's some weeks that I do, because there's inherent joy that I get from the work that I do. And I am able to carry along my children in my work. I'm able to, work from home. And in that way, I feel that when you're in purpose, somehow the stress that you used to live sort of just fades away. I know it sounds crazy, but it actually does, because you're vibrating or you're working at a sort of higher plane. And if you're trying to figure out, but now this purpose thing, what is my purpose? I don't know. Think about what's on the conveyor belt of your life. What is that thing that keeps coming around? Every time you keep trying to run away from it, it pops up, because your spirit is just not at rest when you see certain things not working in the world. And if you're open to, seeing what's on the conveyor belt, one day you'll be brave enough to pick up the bag that's on it and walk away. So be well. Thank you so much. And if you want a positive story about Kenya every day, follow us on Paukwa Stories on your preferred social media channel, hoping that they're not, down like yesterday, that they're actually working.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Mihaki. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Avril from EQ in Action, what are your closing comments for us?
So I think for me, in working a lot in the corporate world, that organizations that are very purpose-driven tend to have less conflict and a lot more unity. And I've seen it when I've actually used purpose to do conflict resolution, is that when people are in a crisis situation, they all work together really well. And we've realized it's because there's a common purpose. So when organizations are more purpose-driven, then the staff are more united, they're more motivated because they're working towards that common goal. And I think for individuals, that when you find your purpose, that even on those toughest days, and I mean, let's face it, over the last 18 months with COVID, we've had tough weeks, tough months. Purpose is still the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, that gives you that motivation and that drive. And if we can tap into that and couple it up with our optimism of finding our choices, I think we can really lead a lot more fulfilling life. And yeah, thank you to everybody who's participated today and to all the panelists. It's been really insightful for me as well. So thanks very much.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely amazing to pick up all the threads coming from everyone. And talking about purpose, I think the guy who mows the lawn in my estate seems to do it on purpose every time I'm on a conference or some sort of a call, and he provides some extra background noise to me, but nonetheless. Last but not least, the rose amongst the thorns, so to speak. Emmanuel, your closing comments for today.
Great. Thanks again, Leroy. Thanks for the amazing session. I've learned a lot too. So for us, of course, we were working with millions of young people who are looking for the opportunities. I think my last words to them goes to them actually, that they need to understand their power. They need to be in control, of the profession, because what we find mostly in our market is that they're desperately looking for opportunities, but that shouldn't be the case. So the message is that a quick SWOT analysis, we are communicating to them this quarter, telling them actually to level up to get an opportunity that is fit for you by just understanding your strength. And this, again, I would like that to be in line with relatable values of organizations that they will really love to work for. It needs to be purpose-driven. They need to find ways to create impact within those organizations. And it's possible once you understand your strength. So the message is level up and get what you deserve.
Awesome, awesome. Those are great words to wrap up and conclude our panel today. Thank you so much for that, Emmanuel. And again, thank you, Avril. Thank you, Mihaki. Thank you, Wanjira. Asante sana, Tatenda. I wish you all a great day further, and I'll hand everyone back to Mucha.
Wow, what a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you, Wanjira. Thank you, Mihaki. Thank you, Avril. Thank you, Emmanuel. And a big shout out, as always, to almost Richard Quest. Thank you very much, Leroy, for your great moderation, as always. Really appreciate the amazing insights. And I can see from the comments that are on the chat that we have all really been blessed by the conversation that our panelists have had. As we come to the end of day one, let me just quickly look back at some of the insights that are coming through here. Thank you very much, Libby, for sharing. Grateful for this opportunity to listen to these esteemed panelists. So many takeaways from all of you. Give your purpose space to change. I love that too. Purpose requires patience. It is a slow burner. Work-life integration, great point by Mihaki. And you can get mad or you can get active. Thank you so much. And lots of thank yous. Ndali, I see you. Thank you, Avril, and Ahoro, I see you as well. So great interacting with all of you. Thank you so much for your insights, my takeaways. What were my key takeaways, not just from this panel, but from the entire day we've had as we've explored purpose? As we come to the end of day one, let me share my insights. The first one is that when working on purpose, you really do have to be patient. Purpose, unlike goals, isn't something to be achieved in the short term. It's something that you need to be willing to keep pushing towards, keep moving towards, so that you can ultimately, create the impact that you desire to create. So that's the first thing. Be patient. Your purpose is something that will outlive you. Long after you're gone, your impact will be felt. The second takeaway is you can get mad or you can get active. I really like that. So thank you very much for that profound insight. And be the change for the world. There was an earlier statement. I was trying to recall how it was put, and I think someone typed it on the chat, but I can't seem to find it. I'm seeing more conversations on the chat. So please have a look at the chat. There was someone who was asking about the poem that Wanjira referenced. Irene has shared that it's called Winter Wheat by Libby Roderick. So that is something you can look back on. There was a comment made about that Avril made around being the best for the world, or being your best for the world. Something, I can't remember the way you put it, Avril, but it was really profound. What a fabulous day we've had. We've come to the end of day one of the conference. Thank you so much for joining us. For all who have come in and interacted and participated, I trust that you have really found day one insightful. Tomorrow we're talking about change, and we will follow the same format. We kick off at 9 a.m. East Africa time. Please note it's 9 a.m. in Kenya, so it may not be 9 a.m. for you. We kick off at 9 a.m. East Africa time with our keynotes. Really looking forward to hearing from Jane Morrison, the regional director for Middle East, Africa, and India at 6 seconds. She will be doing our keynotes tomorrow. Thereafter, we go into our breakouts, and we will be doing an EQ Cafe on change that we call Change Maker. And then after that, we will have our panel discussion. We have another great team who are going to be sharing their insights tomorrow on the panel, again, talking about change and exploring how we can be change ready, how we can get unstuck and leverage the power of emotional intelligence to navigate change. So that is what we have in store for you tomorrow. Thank you again for joining us. I see questions about recording. Yes, the session has been recorded. It will not be available immediately, as we will have to do some editing, but everyone who has joined, who registered for the conference, will get recordings from the session. So the plenary sessions with the panel discussions, the breakout sessions, and the keynote as well. So you will be able to rewind and replay all those moments that were a highlight for you. So thank you very much for joining us. Tomorrow, we come in 9 a.m. The Zoom link will be open from 1:45. Please note, for our session tomorrow, we will have some handouts that you will need to use for the breakout. So keep an eye out for the email that will be sent to you this afternoon with a link to all the different handouts, and make sure you have your report for your 6 seconds assessment with you, as we will be exploring it again as we did today during the panel session. Take a moment to share your insights. Take a moment to type in the chat, what was your greatest takeaway from today? I would love to hear from you as we wrap. And then I'm also encouraging you, go on social media. Remember, we have a prize draw, and on Thursday, we'll be sharing 3 prizes with 3 winners. And the way that you can participate is by tagging us on social media, whatever platform is your preference, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. Tag EQ for Africa. I know the team are going to share the social media handles in the chat. Tag us, use the hashtag, and each time you post on social media, each time we'll enter your name into the prize draw, and there are prizes, great prizes to be won. So please do tag us on social media. The assignment now, take a selfie right now. Take out your phone, take a selfie. I'm getting mine. So take out your phone right now. Join me as we do a group selfie photo, right? So we're not doing a group photo, we're gonna do a group selfie photo. So take out your phone. Have you got your phone? If you got your phone, give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you have your phone. Let me see your phone. Those who have your videos on, even better. Take a picture of yourself. Try as much as possible to get the computer screen in the camera, in the shot as well. So take a picture of yourself right now. Awesome. Take a picture and then post it on social media. And remember, tag us when you do. Tag us at EQ for Africa. Team, please share the social media handles on the chat. Tag us on social media. And as you share your selfie on social media, indicate what your key takeaway was for today. What was your key takeaway for today? Thank you so much for joining us. Bring on day 2. Really excited to have you. Do not forget, before you get up from your computer, before you get up from your phone today, take a selfie and share it. Do what Leroy just did. Yeah, Leroy, I like that idea. A video, even better. Take a selfie. Yep, just like that. Take a selfie so that we can see what we have been up to. And I'm going to encourage you to share it on social media. And remember to tag us. As I mentioned, there is a prize draw. And for every time that you post on social media, we add you. Bye guys, have a fabulous rest of your day. Start practicing EQ from now, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. East Africa time. Remember, it's East Africa time. And if you've had any challenges today, let me send an email to you. It's info@pts.co.ke. So if you had any challenges today, please do just send an email to us. We will make sure that we catch you up, get you up to speed. You have all the handouts for tomorrow. And if you missed anything today, fret not, panic not. We will get the videos to you.